There was a documentary about the late Queen, and they edited it to make it look like she had stormed out of a photo shoot.
The way that they chopped that trailer together made it look as if it was some Kardashian-style reality show.
Annie Leibovitz was shown asking the monarch to remove her crown so it would look less dressy, and she was shown replying, "Less dressy."
She was the boss, and if she didn't want to do it, she wouldn't do it.
I'm not a Vogue model. Don't tell me what to do.
Welcome to Royal Exclusive Rewind, your look back at the moments, triumphs, dramas and controversies that shaped the modern monarchy. This week, we rewind to 2007 when a BBC documentary designed to bring viewers close to Queen Elizabeth II instead triggered one of the corporation's biggest royal scandals. A Year with the Queen promised rare behind-the-scenes access, with a controversial trailer appearing to show the monarch storming out during a photo shoot, sparking headlines claiming she had lost it. But the truth was very different, and the fallout became known as Crowngate. Joining me to rewind the royal row that shook the BBC are royal biographer Robert Jobson and news commentator Samara Gill. Welcome to you both. Look, get straight to the point here. There was a documentary about the late Queen, the untouchable Queen Elizabeth II, and they edited it to make it look like she had stormed out of a photo shoot and let it air. They let it go onto the trailer and it caused such a scene. You don't do that to the Queen, do you, Rob?
You certainly don't, and it did cause a stir. I think I was on the stand at the time, and that we splashed it. It was a major story, and the fact that you got the Queen, the Queen's lost it, and the row with Leibovitz, the great photographer, and this whole whether or not she should be wearing a crown, and it was all sorts of, and the hair was rough. I thought it was a bit of a shocking thing to do by the BBC, but it sort of beggars belief you try and make it into a scandal that wasn't there. Well, they got an absolute trouncing for it because the palace came back with both barrels, and it was story ran and for 3 or 4 days until Fincham got the sack.
Yeah, so this TV production company was RDF Media. It was commissioned by the BBC to make the documentary. Now at the media launch, a clip was played, and they were shown clips in which photographer Annie Leibovitz was shown asking the monarch to remove her crown so it would look less dressy, and she was shown replying, "Less dressy, what do you think this is?" And then it shows her walking away, saying, "I'm not changing anything, I've done enough dressing like this, thank you very much."
I think it will look better without the crown, less dressy, because the garter robe is so extraordinary.
Dressy? What do you think this is? I'm not changing anything. I've done enough dressing like this. Thank you very much.
You don't do that to the Queen, Samara.
You don't, but I mean, even watching back that sort of behind the scenes of that shoot, I mean, Annie Leibovitz is known for taking celebrities and sort of almost like pairing them back to their bare-faced, she's had some very iconic photos with some of the most influential people in the world. And it was crazy to see the way that she was talking to the Queen in that photo shoot. Could you just move that way, do this, do that? It's like, whoa, from a British Australian perspective, it's like, you do not talk to the Queen like that. And at least the way that they chopped that trailer together made it look as if it was some Kardashian-style reality show, and it just wasn't the case. And I think it's really important because the whole grab of the royal family is that it is mysterious, and this was meant to be a look into that. And the Queen being a diva, that doesn't wash. That shouldn't wash. And heads did roll at the BBC over this. Yeah.
Well, the head of the BBC...
What were they thinking of? What were they thinking of doing? They're going to get away with it. How are they going to get away with it?
Well, Fincham, the head of the BBC or whatever, he actually told journalists that the footage shows the Queen losing it a bit and walking out in a huff. So their effort was to get lots of people to watch it and tell journalists that this was a big scandal. Where do you sit with this, Rob, with the press, with the BBC, with TV? Because there have been similar scandals. The BBC, have been told off for editing a Donald Trump speech. We had the Martin Bashir with Diana. I mean, we have a responsibility, don't we, as journalists, to not muck around with this kind of stuff.
Personally, I think the Bashir one was the worst. I think that you were messing with Diana's, she was pretty frail then anyway, mentally, I think, and I think that just sent her over the edge, frankly. But And that was so schemed as well. It was outrageous, but she doing that. But this, it's just shoddy, I think, this one, with the splicing together things, make it look like it's what it is. But, you know, the BBC, I think there were having repercussions over the years, you know, where they used to always get the Christmas broadcast or something like that. I think there was a couple of times it was pulled away from them and given to ITV. Look, my feeling on these things is the BBC are very good at pointing the finger. When it comes to the finger being pointed at them, they're not so good. Hugh Edwards.
Well, what happened? We, like the Sun newspaper, contacted the palace and said, do you know about this documentary showing the Queen walking out in a huff? And obviously it hadn't actually happened. But you know, the trailer still went on air. And it wasn't until, you know, it all came out that they realised that they had lied. Is there an anti-royal agenda, do you think, at the BBC, Samara?
I think somewhat. I also think there's just an air of stupidity from a lot who work within the BBC to not know that the Queen's reputation is something that was built over decades. And yes, one silly little cut like that in a trailer can destroy it in a fail swoop. So I think there's been so much curating of the Queen's profile, and the fact that they didn't know that they couldn't basically reality TV eyes, to make up a word there, is silly. And you can see that with the Trump scandal, where they cut together a video of Trump seemingly inciting violence with no flash in between, made it look that way, and now they're being slammed with a $10 billion lawsuit that could end the BBC as we know it. So is it stupidity or is it an agenda? That's the endless question with the BBC.
Well, they haven't recently. They've not been using the BBC. They've been using streaming companies like Amazon.
Yep.
You know, the Kings bought out one recently. Camilla actually did one with ITV. But there must be pitfalls for them when they're looking around at TV companies based on what happened with the Queen and BBC.
I think the world's changing all the time. The media world's moving so fast that they're struggling to keep up with it. You know, I think journalists are struggling to keep up with it, and the palace and the BBC, which have got all that money comes in for them to do so many things. It's so clunky. It's so, I mean, you know, it just doesn't work in the way it should. People pay their licence fee. Not sure that really we're getting value for money.
You know, it also just doesn't have the reach that it used to. You can see with Prince William going and doing a show with Eugene Levy on Apple TV and other streaming services.
That was another one, yeah. That was another one.
Exactly, and that's a much more effective way of getting his influence across the world than going to the BBC, because that ensures that it's seen by people in every single country, whereas the BBC, of course, it's much more relegated to Britain, and also, as you said, it's a bit clunky and old, and how would they do that? I think that the royal family is actually doing a really good job of foraying into new media, doing Instagram videos, doing YouTubes, going on podcasts, than going and doing some sort of, you know, like kind of state broadcast or something.
But I think that looks so, when they do that down the camera, I mean, it's so stiff.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
I mean, if they're going to do it social, I mean, it's social, they should say, okay, we'll come on Sun Exclusive or we'll go on another. They should do it, you know, because I think going on those...
Sun Exclusive. Would we see maybe William cross our paths?
Well, why shouldn't he? I mean, you know, there's loads of... If they want to impress... The king, if the king, you know, is going to America and he wants to make a big difference, so maybe his spokesman should come on or someone like that, you know, because they've got to spread... It's no good just spreading it amongst what my son would call the legacy media, is it?
Now, there was huge coverage of this at the time, obviously. I mean, we have the Sun front page at the time, which covered it, which was thrown a wobbler, because the press were told that this was actually happening. I mean, do you think that, I know it all panned out that it was just badly edited, but do you think that it damaged the Queen or the royal family's reputation? I mean, is she someone who loses her temper? Is she someone that causes lots of trouble when she's being interviewed by people or appearing on documentaries?
Well, the late Queen, she would just say a few words that would put people right in their place, I think. I mean, that was quite clear there, where she said, you know, what she said, I'm not doing it, you know. And that was cut and whatever, but the fact is she would let people know, you know, if she's going to do it or not. She would just, you know, be very blunt and very plain speaking. And, you know, after all, she was the boss, and if she didn't want to do it, she wouldn't do it.
I mean, I think it also showed the Queen in actually a really good light, because it was the original video was her walking into the room where the photograph was going to be taken, and it was sort of this side of her that shows that she's not a very vain person, considering her face is on every note in the country and every coin. But she still wasn't that happy about having her photo taken in general, and that shows to you how it was really more about the role for her and less about the glossy side of things and the photos and the pictures.
But also, it's the fact that she'd done it a lot of the times, and she knows how she wants to portray herself as the head of this institution. And the fact that Annie Leibovitz is going, I want you to do this, or give me a little bit of that, she's going, no.
Yeah, she's going, I'm not a Vogue model. Don't tell me what to do. I thought the Queen came out of it much better when you actually saw the video.
Do you think it's unfair that people lost their jobs over it? Or was it just an honest mistake?
Oh, it's over the top, isn't it, really? Just someone say sorry would be helpful, wouldn't it? I think sorry is enough, really. But, I think to lose your job over it, I think it's a bit ridiculous myself.
I agree. I don't think. I mean, it's the Queen's reputation, but I also think it's probably, it was 2007. There were a lot of changing attitudes towards the monarchy, and maybe they just thought that was acceptable. I think it's more of a cultural thing than than something very pointed.
And we never really found out what happened, on the editing of the late Queen with Paddington, of course. I mean, anything could have happened there when they sat down and had a cup of tea at a Platinum Jubilee with Paddington Bear at a Platinum Jubilee, Rob. When she had a cup of tea and a marmalade sandwich. We never really knew what happened behind the scenes.
What do you mean it's real?
Yeah, what are you talking about?
Paddington exists.
Yes, I know. But we never really know what happened behind the scenes. I'd love to see behind the scenes, footage of what happened there.
Paddington is a polite bear. He wouldn't have done anything bad.
Well, it's tantamount to when the Queen used to meet with Prime Ministers. You can't talk about it.
Is he suggesting that Paddington's not real?
Well, Paddington's never spoken about it.
It's been ironic,
right?
Paddington has never publicly commented.
But he wouldn't. It was a private conversation.
Private conversation. Right, on that note, we've got to wrap up. Right, that's all we've got time for on this week's Royal Exclusive Rewind. My thanks to my guests, Robert and Samara, and to you for watching. Join us next time as we dive back into the Royal Archives to relive another unforgettable moment from royal history.